Hello everyone, welcome to back my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Triple H was in charge of WWE's NXT developmental system for over a decade before taking charge of main roster storylines in 2022. In a recent video, former World Wrestling Entertainment star Eugene disclosed details about the game's advice for Adam Rose worked for WWE between 2010 and 2016. The 45-year-old initially made his name as the serious Leo Kruger character before reinventing himself as the fun-loving Adam Rose. He moved to the main roster in 2014 after 4 years on the NXT brand, which Triple H ran at the time. Eugene was a WWE Performance Center coach when Rose's character change occurred. On his Eugene Behind the Scenes YouTube channel, the 49-year-old recalled how his former boss gave Rose 90 days to save his job. Rose is best remembered for his entrance, which featured Rosebuds who accompanied him to the ring. His loyal entourage was usually made up of independent wrestlers and Performance Center recruits. Wrestling legend Dusty Rhodes coached at the Performance Center during Adam Rose's days in the NXT developmental system. According to Eugene, Rose immediately altered his character and received words of wisdom from Rhodes about his new persona. Eugene also revealed how he convinced a WrestleMania main eventer to continue wrestling after she considered quitting earlier in her career. The locker room was quieter than usual that night. It wasn't the kind of silence you could easily ignore, the kind where the air felt thick and every word spoken seemed too loud. The camaraderie that usually filled the space felt distant, replaced by an undercurrent of tension. Eugene, whose real name was Nick Dinsmore, leaned back against the wall in the corner of the room. He had witnessed the chaotic ebb and flow of the WWE universe for years, and this moment, this particular silence, felt like something much more significant. A seasoned performer, Eugene had been in the industry long enough to understand that nothing in the WWE world was ever as it seemed. It was a machine, always running, always looking for the next big thing. But when a top talent, or even a rising star, fell out of favor, it was never easy. And for one of his former colleagues, that moment was now. Backstage whispers spoke of one thing: Triple H had given him 90 days to save his job. It wasn't unheard of in the WWE for contracts to be in jeopardy. But when it came from someone like Triple H, a man who had transitioned from one of the biggest stars in wrestling history to one of the most powerful figures behind the scenes, the stakes were higher. Triple H wasn't just the king of kings in the ring anymore. He was a kingmaker backstage, with the ability to influence talents' careers in ways few could comprehend. Eugene, who had been in the business for years, knew exactly what that kind of ultimatum meant. Triple H wasn't someone who offered second chances lightly, especially not in an industry where the demands for excellence were insatiable. The 90 days. That was a deadline, a ticking clock that would decide whether someone remained in the spotlight or faded into obscurity. "I don't get it," Eugene muttered to himself as he recalled the story. He had worked with this person before, an up-and-coming wrestler who had all the talent in the world but was somehow unable to tap into the potential that everyone saw. He was caught in the trap of corporate pressure, the spotlight, and most importantly, his own self-doubt. The 90 days were a make-or-break moment in his career, and the pressure would be insurmountable. But Eugene knew something else too. He knew the power of the people behind the scenes, the bookers, the writers, and of course, Triple H himself. If anyone could change a wrestler's fortunes in that window, it was Triple H. He had done it before, with countless superstars who had faltered and then risen again under his mentorship. But Eugene also understood the harsh reality of it. Not everyone got that shot. Not everyone was given the 90-day grace period. Some superstars would be cast aside without a second thought, their dreams crushed under the weight of the industry's unrelenting nature. "Do you think he can do it?" a voice suddenly interrupted Eugene's thoughts. It was Rob Conway, another wrestler who had spent years in WWE, his name forgotten by most, but whose understanding of the backstage politics was second to none. "Do what?" Eugene asked, knowing full well what Conway was referring to. "Save his job," Conway clarified, sitting down next to him. "You know who we're talking about. He's not the same guy who came in a few years ago. Something's changed, and I don't think he can turn it around." Eugene glanced at him, narrowing his eyes. "You don't know that I do," Conway replied, shaking his head. "I've seen it happen. I've seen Triple H give people opportunities, and I've also seen him cut people loose when they don't deliver. 90 days is a hell of a deadline. If he can't pull something off, he's gone. Simple as that. There was a heavy pause. Eugene had heard this before. The cutthroat nature of the business didn't surprise him, but it still didn't sit right. He knew the pressure was mounting on his former colleague, someone who had once had the world at his feet. The performer in question, let's call him Chris, had been through ups and downs in his career. He had started with an undeniable energy, a fire that made him a fan favorite, but somewhere along the way, the shine began to dull. His performances had started to lack the spark that once made him stand out. The fans noticed, the promoters noticed, and of course, Triple H noticed, but the thing that made Triple H so unique as a backstage authority figure was his ability to see potential, even in the most unlikely places. The King of Kings was a master of reinvention, and perhaps he saw something in Chris that no one else could. That's why he'd given him the ultimatum, the 90 days. It was a test, a trial period for Chris to prove he still had what it took. What does he need to do? Eugene asked, genuinely curious about the specifics. He had seen talent rise and fall like a tide, but Chris's case was different. It wasn't just about skill. It was about finding his place in the WWE universe. Conway rubbed his chin thoughtfully. He needs to find that fire again, the thing that made him stand out. He needs to be bold, take risks. Triple H has always respected that. He doesn't want the cookie-cutter superstars. He wants someone who can bring something fresh to the table. That's why he gave him the 90 days. He wants to see if Chris can find his edge again. Eugene nodded slowly. That made sense. Triple H had always valued individuality, the ability to carve out a unique persona in a world full of lookalikes. Chris's biggest mistake had been trying to fit into a mold. But the question was, could he adapt in time? The clock was ticking. 90 days to save it all. The weeks that followed were a blur. For Chris, each day felt like a battle against time. The pressure from Triple H was unrelenting, but it wasn't just the fear of losing his job that weighed heavily on him. It was the knowledge that he had let himself and the fans down. He had come into WWE with so much promise, but somewhere along the way, he had lost his way. How the hell do I fix this? Chris muttered to himself one morning, sitting in his hotel room. His phone buzzed on the table. It was a message from Eugene. You've got this, just stay true to yourself. Triple H sees something in you. Don't forget that. Chris sighed, running a hand through his hair. Eugene's words were comforting, but they didn't make the task ahead any easier. He could feel Triple H's eyes on him at every corner, scrutinizing every match, every promo, every move he made. If he didn't come through, that would be it. At the next Monday Night Raw, Chris stepped into the ring with a renewed sense of purpose. This was his chance, his only chance. He had been given 90 days to prove he belonged, and he wasn't going to waste it. He knew Triple H would be watching, and he couldn't afford to disappoint. The crowd roared as his music hit. There was something different in the air tonight, something more electric. Chris entered the arena with a newfound swagger, not the cocky, arrogant swagger of old, but the kind that came from true self-confidence. He wasn't trying to be anyone else. He was Chris, the man who had been given a shot at redemption, and he was going to make the most of it. As the match went on, it became clear to the fans, to the crew, and to Triple H himself that Chris had finally found his spark again. The energy he exuded in the ring was contagious. Every move he made was calculated, yet there was an element of unpredictability. He was no longer a wrestler trying to follow the script. He was a performer who had embraced the chaos of the business and made it his own. The final judgment. The 90 days were almost up. Chris had given it everything he had. The matches, the promos, the backstage conversations, they were all leading up to this one final moment. He stood backstage, waiting for his meeting with Triple H. The nerves that had been a constant companion during this journey now settled into a quiet resolve. The door opened. Triple H walked in, his presence commanding attention. Chris, he said, his tone measured but not unkind. I've seen what you've done in these last few weeks. I know it hasn't been easy for you, but I'm impressed. You found your edge again. Chris's heart raced. This could be it. Triple H continued, you need to keep this up. You need to understand that this business is ruthless. It doesn't matter how good you are if you can't deliver when it counts. You've got what it takes. Now, you need to prove it every damn time. Chris nodded, the weight of Triple H's words sinking in. You've got more than 90 days, Triple H said, giving him a rare, approving smile. You've earned your place. Now go out there and show them why you're here for Chris. The 90 days had been a grueling test, one that had challenged every part of him. But in the end, it was the most important lesson of his career. The key wasn't just about having talent. It was about finding yourself in the process, and for Chris, that discovery had just begun. Epilogue, a new beginning. The following months were a new chapter in Chris's career. His rise to prominence wasn't without its hurdles, but with Triple H's backing, he became a fan favorite once again. The 90-day deadline had pushed him to his limits, but in the end, it made him stronger. And as for Eugene, he watched from the sidelines, proud of his friend and happy to see him succeed. Sometimes, it wasn't just about the wrestling. It was about the journey, the growth, and the determination to keep fighting, even when the odds were stacked against you. Thanks for watching this video, and please subscribe our WWE official YouTube channel for more update news.